typically in prison, where the president's campaign manager, who worked for Ukrainian interests, who was caught up in other aspects of this, is currently incarcerated, or the president's former lawyer is currently incarcerated. So this is what we can see. And yet, isn't it important for Americans to understand, wherever you come down on this, or if you haven't come down yet, because you still want to hear the rest of the evidence in any potential trial, isn't it important to remember there's a lot that we can see on camera and a lot more in this plot that is still being excavated.
Right, and that leads me to ask you this question, since you have this expertise, about the other hearing that happened yesterday. And the kinds of moves that the Republicans were making around the IG report, and the way in which they were emphasizing the report's critique of the FISA court and how they were deploying that. So what's the relationship for our viewers between what we saw in the Senate yesterday and what we saw yesterday evening and what we're going to see this morning?
Well, I think the Senate hearing was about a report that Donald Trump and Bill Barr had long promised, that was exhaustively done, that found no witch hunt. Not only no witch hunt, it didn't find a broom, it didn't find a witch hat, it didn't find anything like that. When you look at the menu of did you find a ton of bias that prejudiced the opening of the probe, medium bias, some bias, or no bias, this watchdog, Mr. Horowitz, found no bias in the opening of the probe. So that was a huge body blow to the hopes that this would somehow reinforce the claims of a witch hunt. He did find other problems in the warrant process. I would note some of those we've seen before in terms of how these secret warrants are revealed, but ultimately that's great to find and fix if you can, but no witch hunt. And so what you had, Eddie, was this effort to try to turn that into something else and make it more. It's almost like if you've ever been in a fight with someone, perhaps a loved one or a partner, and you live up to expectations, you did do the dishes, or you did take out the garbage, or you did arrive on time, but if there's a desire to fight anyway, I don't know if you've ever been in this situation. Sometimes people can find a way to say, yeah, you were on time today, but only because I had to make you on time, because one other time or many other times in the past you weren't on time. Well, okay, well, now we're not even debating the thing. We're debating your expectation of a past thing. And so when the Republicans say there was at some point in history a problem or unfairness, that may or may not be true, but it was not in the new report. No witch hunt. And so it was really fascinating to see yesterday's hearing as a chance to try to react to something that which did not exist.
All right, joining us now from outside the House Judiciary Committee hearing room, MSNBC correspondent Garrett Haake. Garrett, explain what you know more about how this is all going to play out today.
Well, Mika, we will hear these articles of impeachment read today before the committee, and then while this is called a markup, you can expect that these articles, this 9-page document, this resolution, will ultimately emerge from today unblemished. This hearing will go on as long, really, as Republicans want it to, because this is something where Democrats have a document they want, have a resolution that they're ready to take to the floor, but the process here allows for almost unlimited offering of amendments, and I don't think you'll hear any Democrats offer amendments, but you will hear Republicans. Some of them will be germane to impeachment, and some of them likely will not be. The issue here is you can slow things down, you can force the Judiciary Committee members to take awkward or uncomfortable votes, and you have essentially endless opportunity today for procedural hijinks, parliamentary maneuvers, anything to try to embarrass the majority here or to just gum up this process. When you're in the minority in the House, you don't have hardly any power, but you can slow things down and you can make things uncomfortable. And really, one last chance for Judiciary Committee Republicans to try to do that today. That's what I expect we'll see today, really all morning and then all afternoon until Republicans decide they've had enough and want to let this vote, which in the Judiciary Committee at least will be a foregone conclusion, take place.
But then look at next week, House vote. Also, there's the issue of funding the government and USMCA. How does that all fit together?
So many things coming together at the very end of the session. They can be here till at least Friday or later, I suppose, if they have to. But government funding is set to run out that day. There are 2 meetings on Capitol Hill today among appropriators in the House and Senate, Democrats, Republicans, the White House, all trying to finalize some kind of spending bill all the way through next year, although they have in their back pocket the possibility of a shorter extension of just a few months. Democrats don't want impeachment to be the last thing they vote on before they leave town, and so it won't be. I think we'll see the vote on the floor probably Wednesday, and then you'll have these USMCA vote and some kind of vote to keep the lights on in the government before everyone gets out of town. The opportunity to go home for Christmas tends to clarify the mind of lawmakers, so I think you'll see a lot of this happen in fairly short order, particularly if they can get a deal on that spending bill.
Garrett Haake, thank you very much. And Joe, as we look ahead to next week, I guess these all stay in parallel tracks and they don't impact each other, these issues?
Well, we'll see. Mitch McConnell's already talked about delaying the vote on the trade deal into the new year. So we'll see how it goes. But, yeah, Nancy Pelosi will make sure, as Garrett said, make sure that the last vote that they take will not be on impeachment. That'll be on some other significant issue. But Jonathan Lemire, yesterday we got the IG's report. We're hearing now that we may get another report, a report that many in the White House probably won't want to see because so many have been concerned about Rudy Giuliani's activities in Ukraine. But now Giuliani is running around saying he may issue his own report this week. Tell us about it.
I actually spoke with the former mayor the other day, earlier this week, and he said that the president encouraged him to release this report. Now, let's remember, Rudy Giuliani, many in the White House and Republicans blame him for this impeachment mess, that he stirred up the president on Ukraine, that he really brought some of these conspiracy theories about CrowdStrike and Ukraine's interference in 2016, all of which, of course, are unfounded, to the forefront. They existed on the sort of the fringes of the conservative movement, and he brought them to the White House. The president embraced them, and then to the shock and, frankly, horror of a number of people close to the president, Giuliani went to Ukraine again last week to do some more research. He says that to find out more about corruption, to find out more about Biden and his son, to find material, he says, that will exonerate the president. He won't reveal, at least not yet, what that material is. But Giuliani says that the president himself wants him to prepare some sort of report, but it's unclear, and that may happen as soon as this week, but it's unclear exactly how. Senator Graham has said that he was not going to be inviting Giuliani to his committee in the Senate. We know that William Barr has really soured on Giuliani and blames him for a lot of this, so it's not clear he would be presenting it to the Department of Justice. Perhaps he'll just be hand-delivering it to the president, but certainly all of this matters is weighing heavily on the president's mind. My phone lights up every time the president tweets, and my battery is about out because we're coming in on triple digits of tweets from the president this morning, who is carefully watching all these impeachment proceedings.
The president frantic in the White House as he watches the impeachment proceedings continue. Ari, it does seem that we have a pair of Mr. Magoo's in a sense, just creating so many problems for themselves. Rudy Giuliani in hot water over Ukraine, goes to Ukraine, makes things more difficult, actually causes a panic among many White House advisors for doing that. But it's not so removed from Donald Trump. The day after Robert Mueller testified, actually picked up the phone and started this crisis with Ukraine with his quid pro quo call. It seems that these two can't get out of their own way.
That's absolutely right. Rudy Giuliani hangs over these proceedings as we watch the judiciary members get into place, Joe. If we raise the question, how bad a lawyer is Rudy Giuliani, the answer is so bad that he single-handedly did what the Democrats, Bob Mueller, all those prosecutors, and Speaker Pelosi had not done. He got Donald Trump impeached. He went out and did all of this. Now, Donald Trump is the client. The client is always more responsible than the lawyer. But it was both, at least according to the written articles of impeachment that we're going to see debated and marked up today, it was the stated plot by Donald Trump, talked to Rudy, also, by the way, talked to Barr, mentioned in that call, and then Rudy going out and confirming it. We're often asked, Joe, I know you're often asked, okay, how does this compare to history and Watergate and other things we've been through? And lawyers love to look at the legal precedents. This is Watergate, but the tapes have better production value because the tapes are publicly released speeches, statements, TV interviews, Rudy Giuliani on Fox News saying every single thing he did was with the State Department. And at the time, that seemed bad but unlikely. And then it turned out that was bad, true, or worse, because Ambassador Sondland comes into these impeachment hearings and says under oath There was no shadow. This wasn't bad apples. We're all the bad apples. We're a whole pile of rotten bad apples. Everyone was in the loop. Was it quid pro quo bribery under oath? Yes, it was, sir. That's a Watergate tape with a lot better sound quality.